Have you ever gone to an all-you-can-eat restaurant and piled way too much on your plate? So much so that it all blends into one big jumbled mess and there's just no way you can eat it all. However, if by some grace of God you do, you feel weighed down and exhausted.
The old adage of having too much on your plate holds a lot of truth to artists in particular, and understanding that just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. In other words, today we're going to talk about knowing when it's time to put down the fork.
Hey, how's everyone doing? For Bridge Atlantic, I am singer-songwriter Marcio Novelli from Canada.
And I'm music web designer Ross Barber-Smith from Scotland.
And you're watching B-Sides, a show empowering musicians with knowledge and advice. If you're new here, subscribe.
Before we jump in, we just want to say a big thank you to our patrons for supporting the show. We appreciate you.
If you enjoy what we do here on Bridge Atlantic, head on over to our Patreon page to join the official Bridger community.
So I want to open up today's show by asking you a question, Marcio. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready because it's in our show notes.
Yes. What is burnout?
So I came up with a little equation here. It's pretty simple, but I think it hits it right on the nose here. So overwork plus lack of self-care equals burnout.
I'm glad that was a simple equation.
Yes, it was.
Otherwise,
simple.
People would have been tuning out
Carry the one.
because too much math. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that you and I can both relate to, both individually and
Mm-hmm.
collectively as Bridge Atlantic. And I'm sure a lot of artists who are watching or listening also have experienced that at some
Mm-hmm.
point. So what do you think is kind of the main thing that leads to burnout, maybe more so for artists in particular?
I would say trying to do too much and or taking on too many projects, particularly at the same time.
Yeah.
That's something you and I have both done. And just to preface this episode a little bit, it's kind of why we want to talk about this today is because we took a break. We actually took over a year from doing the show, even though anyone who follows this show might not have realized that because we had enough content to take us into 2019. But we actually stopped doing Bridge Atlantic, stopped filming new episodes in summer of 2018 for those exact reasons. We were trying to do too much and taking on too many projects at the same time that we kind of weren't able to give everything our full attention like it should have. You know what I mean?
Because we've got so many different interests, so many different things that we want to achieve, I guess it can be too easy to take on loads of stuff and just think, yeah, that's fine, I can handle this, I can handle it. And you probably can to a point. But I think it's recognizing when things are getting to the point of being too much. Is that finding that balance, that line of when too much is too much. And I think for you and I think if we'd continued going the way we were going, we would have actually burnt out properly. But I think we didn't want to get to that point because we knew how much it would affect various things in our life. So we took the decision to take a break.
I think we actually caught it just before that burnout. And that's something for, I think, creatives to keep in mind, and musicians in particular, is when you feel like you're getting to that point, maybe if you take a break before then, when you're catching that moment where you're just going to lose it, you know what I mean? If you catch that, you're able to, take a break and kind of reevaluate everything, before you're kind of forced to, because you can no longer kind of continue the way you're going. You know what I mean? So I also think, when you feel like your well-being is being affected, or the people around you, if you're neglecting, your interpersonal relationships, which, at the end of the day that's what life's all about, then it's a pretty big red flag that it's time to take a break.
Yeah. So I think taking a break gives you time to really reflect on what you're doing. It gives you perspective on what's important. And, I think the trouble is when you're so busy working on so many different things, you're so involved in those things all the time. It's really hard to kind of see really where things are at the moment and where things are going to be in the future. And sometimes taking that step back and really just not being so involved in the day-to-day or minute-by-minute madness that it often can be really helps you to get that perspective, which is one of the most important things, I think, for moving everything forward.
Well, I can relate to this as not only a musician and artist, but, doing this show with you, Ross. We are so goal-oriented and we always want to grow and move to that next milestone that I think we often don't take time to even appreciate where we've gotten to, So I think you and I, what led us to continue doing the show was a lot of just a lot of reflection and actually being proud and excited about some of the people that we've met through the show, the people that we've helped, most importantly, the connections we made, and just the all around fun that we have doing this. Once we had enough time away from all the stress and awful parts about doing a podcast or being an artist, we don't have to go into details, but there's a lot of just grunt work that goes with things that aren't as fun, but the idea here is to take a break so you can rest and recharge, and you end up coming back refocused, which is where we are right now. And over a year away, we're back with a brand new focus. And when I say focus, it's about doing less is more, really. And it's about honing in on what you think you do best and what you enjoy doing most, and doing that at the best of your ability. Coming back refreshed with a new fire, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things about taking a break, and maybe more so when you're getting to the point where you want to start doing things again, is really thinking about the priorities, because I think it's easy to get very overwhelmed when you're trying to do so many different things. So I think really if you can prioritize what's most important right now, what's the one thing that you really definitely need to do, and give that the attention that it deserves, everything else, I'm not going to say will fall into place, because that's maybe a little bit too, it's not going to just fall into place all by itself.
Of course not.
But I mean, once you take care of the most important thing, it's much easier to then take care of the next thing on the list and then the next thing on the list, when you break everything down like that.
The hardest part, though, is finding out what is that most important thing to do. So that's, of course, different for everyone. But I would think at the end of the day, it's about what actually needs to be done. We all have things we want to do, but what needs to be done, most importantly. And once you get through that, you can start prioritizing what you want to do. And, if it's a big, big goal, how do you break it down into smaller steps to get to that, milestone, whether it's a, quarterly milestone, yearly milestone, whatever it is. You just got to break it down into parts, and it also allows you to really shift your focus onto areas that need more attention. And again, when you're so focused on something, you might not realize that you're neglecting or, just not giving the focus to the areas that you might need to be giving focus to.
Definitely. And I think another thing about sorting out your priorities, it can help you get a clearer vision for the future. You can kind of learn from where things haven't really gone right in the way that maybe you were working before. So maybe you were trying to do 10 different things, but really you should have only been doing 8 or even less. It can really help you learn, so that for future, if you're working on, let's just say 5 or 6 projects, and the opportunity comes up to take on one more, it really helps you to think, can I take this on and do it successfully? Maybe I can, but then, this one and this one needs to kind of go on the back burner for a little bit. It helps you to kind of figure out, so you don't get to that point again where you're forced to really take a long break. You might need a little bit of time to kind of think things through, but I think, it can definitely help you plan your future projects.
The idea is, quality control, and quality versus quantity. We're told so often as artists, especially in the streaming era, musicians put out as much content as possible. Instead of putting out an album, put out singles. That way you reach people more often. And YouTubers are no stranger to this. Content. We kind of got wrapped up into this, and it kind of aided in our exhaustion, I think, is just the idea that you always had to put something out, regardless, I think we always tried to keep our quality high. However, that's regardless of who you are, that's going to slip. If your goal is to put something out rather than focusing on doing the best that you can do. And the idea that, they say content is king, but quality over quantity is truly what builds an empire.
Definitely. I think, one of the issues that a lot of creatives face is when they take on, they take too much from what people say or what the other people suggest, and not necessarily thinking about what's going to work for them. They're just kind of trying everything, like throwing it at the wall, see what sticks. And it's good to try new things. Like, don't get me wrong, it is good to try stuff, but at the same time, there's only so much that you can, or maybe that you should do. And I think we had to learn that the hard way.
We did a few things that we thought we should be doing, but didn't really feel natural to us. But at the end of the day, it needs to be authentic, or else, no one wants a copy of a copy. Fight Club reference there. And, it needs to be you. It needs to be you.
Yeah. I have another food-based metaphor that I've just come up with.
What?
I'm trying to hone it a little bit. But it's like, just because you've got all the seasonings doesn't mean you need to use them.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah.
That is good. That's much better than what I have written down here. Too many cooks spoil the broth. But
spoilers, come on.
We don't have
but ultimately what I mean is, definitely you can take some inspiration, take some advice, but don't feel you need to use everything. Just because a tool's in the toolbox doesn't mean it's the right one.
There we go. Metaphors. You know what? Be confident in who you are, I think. And I mean, that's always changing and that's always growing, but at the end of the day, if you think if someone's telling you to do something, it just doesn't feel right to you, appreciate that, but nobody knows what's right for you more than yourself.
In closing, to kind of wrap things up here, we want to give you guys something to think about. And that is, taking some time to rediscover what you want to do can be a really important step to moving forward. You deserve to feel creative and unapologetic about what you do.
Yeah, as artists, we often believe we have to work nonstop to achieve our goals, but it's really important to give ourselves permission to break, reflect, and recharge in order to perform at our best.
You sure do. And if you want more from us, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. If you want to pick up one of our shirts, visit our website and use the coupon code BTAROCKS to receive 20% off your order.
This episode was brought to you by Social Surge and Electric Kiwi, two companies fully dedicated to helping today's musicians. So check them out because they do what, Russ?
They keep the show alive.
That's right.
And if you would like to sponsor the show and become an official Bridger, join us on Patreon from as little as $1 per month. Not only will you be able to showcase your band or brand to our amazing audience, but your support will allow us to get back to bringing you new videos and content here at Bridge the Atlantic.
All right. It feels so good to be back. That is it for B-Sides.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.